Louis XIV of France is probably most famous for ordering the building of the palace at Versailles, and the most famous part of the palace at Versailles is probably the Hall of Mirrors. And while the Hall of Mirrors is beautiful, what it's hiding is the political intrigue, the industrial espionage, and the state-sanctioned assassinations that took place behind the scenes. Louis XIV's obsession with mirrors started about 20 years before the conception of Versailles, and his obsession made them very popular among the French aristocracy. The fashionable thing to do was to buy mirrors and have them mounted in frames like pictures and hung about the house. As his obsession with the mirrors grew, so did the price tag associated with this particular hobby, and his finance minister, Jean-Pierre Colbert, decided that he needed to do something to curb this spending. Of course, he couldn't ask the king to go with fewer mirrors, so he had to find the money somewhere else. Colbert's solution was to stop buying expensive mirrors from Venice and start manufacturing inexpensive mirrors in Paris. There was just one problem. Mirror making was a Venetian state secret at the time. If you were a Venetian mirror maker, you were registered with the Venetian government, you were watched, your family was watched, and it was illegal for you to leave. They also had a system set up to oppress your families back at home in case anyone ever did. So Colbert sends a letter to the French ambassador in Venice and says, "Hey, do you think you could kidnap a mirror maker for me?" And the ambassador goes, "Sure, here you go. I also got 2 of his apprentices for you," and he promises them very high pay and sends them on a coach to Paris. He does also follow through on this high pay. They're paid about 20% more than the king's personal playwright was being paid. So Venice is immediately aware that these guys are gone, and they immediately open negotiations with these mirror makers and their families just to try to get them to come home the easy way. What ended up being a problem for the French was that they'd only kidnapped one type of specialist, and you apparently need more than that to produce good mirrors. So this guy and his apprentices are turning out shitty mirrors, and Colbert's like, "Hey, what the fuck?" And the guys are like, "Yeah, if you could kidnap some of these other guys, that'd be great." And so they did, kidnap them. At this point, Venice starts resorting to union-busting techniques. They try to set the Parisian now mirror makers against each other by telling them that one's getting paid more than the other. This does sort of work. One of them tries to murder the other one, but it doesn't happen. But eventually, one of the mirror makers dies with extreme gastrointestinal distress. Looks like he might have been poisoned. And then 2 weeks later, another one dies with extreme gastrointestinal distress. And at this point, all of the Venetian mirror makers living in Paris get the hint, and they all move back to Venice. It was too late, however. The French already knew how to make high-quality mirrors, and about 15 years later, the Hall of Mirrors was a thing.